Daniel 3 is a story of jealous conflict in the royal court. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, 3 Hebrew captives, have gained favor with the king. They've also gained rivals, native Babylonians who are jealous and offended that foreigners have been placed in such high authority over them. So they seized the opportunity to attack them for treason. Their crime? They would not bow down to or worship King Nebuchadnezzar's golden image. Now the image was no joke. It was 90 feet high and 9 feet wide, overlaid with gold. Now why did the king set up such an enormous image? Perhaps Nebuchadnezzar sought to build the statue of his dream in chapter 2 so as to show that his empire, though it had been threatened, will thrive. At any rate, he's not pleased that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego have shown no regard for his edict. Furious, he summons them to his presence. Now this becomes the moment of truth and the peak of the story. Nebuchadnezzar gives them a final opportunity to obey, but instead they take the opportunity to make their confession of allegiance to God before the king and all the people. The 3 are found guilty and thrown into the blazing furnace that had been heated 7 times hotter because the king was so enraged with their lack of respect for his statue. But then something amazing happens. They are joined by a supernatural figure, one who looks like a son of the gods. King Nebuchadnezzar calls them out of the blazing furnace and sees that they are unharmed. Not even the smell of fire is on their clothes. Nebuchadnezzar himself makes the confession that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are servants of the Most High God. Thus they are vindicated and further promoted. But most importantly, their God is elevated in the presence of all the people. Now this is a classic hero of faith story, defying a royal edict in spite of execution, because to follow and obey the systems of the world would mean despising their faith convictions. Exegetical notes. Verse 1 states King Nebuchadnezzar set up an image of gold. The setting up of statues is a familiar feature of the Babylonian, Persian, and Greek empires. The statue may have represented Nebuchadnezzar himself. The Assyrian king set up such statues as symbols of their dominion. Verse 5 mentions the lyre. The lyre is a harp. As in many cultures, music draws attention to state and religious processions and ceremonials. None of the instruments mentioned are used in Israelite worship, thus suggesting a further element of pagan nature. Verse 8 mentions some astrologers, or in some texts called Chaldeans. The Chaldeans are Babylonians who are hostile to the 3 Jews on ethnic grounds, like Haman in the book of Esther. Or they may be Chaldean sages, as in chapter 2, suffering from professional jealousy. In verse 15, Nebuchadnezzar asks the question, "What God will be able to rescue you from my hand?" The king's challenge would receive a response from the living God. The 3 have no doubt that their God can rescue them, but even if their God does not intervene, it makes no difference in their stance. They are committed to faithfulness regardless of the cost. In verse 25, Nebuchadnezzar states that he sees one like the son of the gods. Nebuchadnezzar sees a divine being. It may suggest God himself, which would parallel Israel's current circumstance. God is present when Israel walks through the fire. To the Jews, the phrase Ben Elohim, son of the gods, would indicate a subordinate heavenly being, kind of like the supernatural watchman of chapter 4, verse 13, 17, and 23. In verse 26, Nebuchadnezzar states, "the Most High God." Nebuchadnezzar's acknowledgement of God brings the story to its second climax. The king makes Judaism a recognized religion with rights to toleration and respect. The prospering of the 3 Jews who are the confessors in provincial affairs brings a final climax. The power of their God and the power of their commitment to him brings them political power. Now when believers face the fire, They may be encouraged to be faithful to God, confident that their God is Lord, and He will show that He is. When situations are utterly hopeless, they can trust Him to vindicate their commitment and His power by rescuing them one way or another.